Hey, you are now listening to the Graceway podcast. Let's talk.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Jeff Adams. I want to welcome you to this special episode of the podcast that we call Let's Talk. And normally I'm here with Pastor Tim Dunn. We're talking about his message for the day. And since this is the day after Christmas instead of a normal Sunday, we thought let's do something a little bit different. And so it's my joy to welcome Pastor Jay Grimwood with me today. And we're going to be talking. I'm going to say a word about Pastor Jay, and then I'm going to get you involved in the conversation. But Jay Grimwood is retiring at the end of this year. And so I don't know who in the world is going to be interested in hearing two old retired dudes talk, okay? But we're not going to be talking shuffleboard or anything like that. It's really pretty cool, and I'm so glad, Jay, that they asked me to do the interview because we go back a long way, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you have done so many things here. You started off as children's pastor and faithfully served in that capacity. You brought so many innovations, I think, to our children's ministry. And then because you have a vast travel experience, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but for you to transition from that to becoming our mission pastor for quite some time. And you and I have seen service all over this planet.
Yes, we have.
And so before anything, man, I just want to let you know how grateful I am to you.
Well,
It's been a great journey.
me to you too, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I felt really like God put us together, and you've been such a great mentor, and I always have been. I remember when we first met at the Businessman's Bible Study. Remember that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just a really new Christian at that time, and I just said, I got to go to church where this guy's teaching.
And I look out, and there you and Andre are sitting, and never look back.
That's right.
But I think there's something interesting to people. You didn't go to Bible college or seminary to become a pastor, and here you've spent the bulk of your adult life in ministry. You had another very interesting opportunity, Jay, before you did some other things. There's a little kind of a mom and pa shop here in town called Garmin.
Yes.
Tell folks about what you passed up to do this.
Yeah, well, it was right at the time after, actually before I came to Christ, I had been doing some contract design work. I was a mechanical designer in the engineering department at an electronics company, and we were doing, me and another employee there were doing side work on contract, and a group that we knew through the electronics company we were working for were forming a company called Garmin, and it was prior to that it was a different name, but that's another story. But so me and Bill we got the contract to design the mechanical package for the very first Garmin radio. And it was, just a basic navigational, GPS radio. And so we took that on. And then they were forming this company at the time. There was only 10 employees when we were working with them. And of course, they asked both of us to come on. And I remember the discussion that we had. It was like, I don't know. You think this company's going to go anywhere? It's like, so God recognized it. No, he's not smart enough to be there. I better get him redirected. Yeah.
Oh man,
Well, that's why I don't do the stock market, because I missed that one.
Well, I think you and I both have the same record there, and we're both wise to stay out of that.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
But tell us a little bit about where you went from there, because you became director of another very large company about that time.
Yes, and that company had split, and it was a subsidiary of a South Korean company, and God just moved me up the ladder there. Miraculously, I was moved from the engineering department to our large sales department for all the OEM products we were doing for everybody, mainly like Southwestern Bell and those telecommunication companies with anything wireless we were building under other people's names primarily. And so I eventually became the director of operations there. which led me to, I was traveling a little bit already, but then I just began to travel extensively. We built factories in Thailand and Philippines, and back during that emerging tech time.
Yeah.
China wasn't even on the
Right,
radar
right.
at that time. Yeah.
I know that's hard for people to believe
Yeah,
today.
exactly. Yeah. So it was, that's where I had a lot of my international travel, and I was kind of what you and I would call a vocational missionary.
Right.
Yeah, and it was really a great time.
It's just so amazing to me how God uses all of our experiences, whether we consider them good or bad.
Yes.
But He uses all of that in order to position us to where He wants us. And going back to that theme, and you were traveling all over Asia at the time and other places as well. God was preparing you to be a future mission pastor and giving you worldwide experience. But from a business perspective, which I think you and I would agree, that's incredibly valuable. That's a lot more valuable in some ways than a seminary education.
Absolutely.
But during that time, you were also getting involved here at Graceway, used to be called Kansas City Baptist Temple back in the day, and we had a little thing that we called Shepherd School. They have something similar here at Graceway
Yes,
today. We
yes.
call Ministry School, but kind of worked that a little bit because you were studying there, but at the same time you had a pretty high-powered job that was taking you around the world. How did you do that?
Yeah, it was tough actually. I was really busy, but I wanted, for me, and I'm kind of as you are, academic and intellectual kind of guy. I really wanted to know the Bible. It was kind of like I didn't want to lose an argument. And so I thought, no, I'm learning the Bible. So I got involved in our shepherd school here, which was really an incredible, local Bible institute is really what it was. And it gave me, what happened was I was doing it, for my own intellectual quest, but what transpired from it was that I just became, God got a hold of my heart, about whether or not I should continue down this business path or just do full-time ministry. I kind of fell in love with the Word and fell in love with the Lord, and He started shaping me and molding me in ways that I hadn't I hadn't planned.
Yeah.
And it was really a good for me though. I felt like every manager or every business person should have that kind of background because it helped me in leadership principles.
Yeah.
I mean, the leadership material that you had done, and as well as some of the other pastors that we were under, I still use them today, but I used them, and I believe that is, in many ways, is why God, blessed me in that management to move me up to that executive director, in the operations.
That's fascinating, but I think that you could probably say that the opposite is true, that there are many people in ministry who are hampered because they don't have understanding of the real world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would totally agree. And oftentimes, you and I had that discussion. We'd have candidates come to us, and they would have a international studies or a biblical studies degree or pastoral minister degree or something, and they were wanting to go on the mission field. And I said, well, the only way you're getting into this area is if you have a secular degree.
Right.
So, plus, I think one thing that we miss is going in as a professional into any country, and you're doing value-added input to that community, to that country, to the political and the socioeconomic structure of all those countries. You become an instant partner.
Yeah.
In many ways, with the business world, with the political world. We saw that, in northern Iraq. How
Yes.
they were way behind what we were doing because it was helping their community.
Exactly, and what happens is they really don't care at that point whether you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a Jew, or whatever. You're bringing value to the community,
That's
and you
right.
become part of the community.
You do. You become an ally and a friend, and that's really the basis, really, for sharing any kind of spiritual or philosophical viewpoints that you have. You have to have that bridge of friendship anyway, even in our society here.
Well, you were so prophetic in that sense, Jay, because you were kind of ahead of the curve. And of course, today, in today's world, so many of the places in the world where those who are the least reached, the unreached, the unengaged, whatever term we want to use, they are in places where traditional missionaries can no longer enter, and even if they could, would have to fight to be heard because there's no respect there.
Yes. People have come to both of us, as I know, because we've talked to the same people often, but they'll ask, what do I need to do to prepare? And many times it was, well, this area, they need engineers or they need hydrologists, or they need, doctors, or whatever. There's just so many different needs there. And
it was interesting to hear Pastor Tim, who just got back from Iraq, put out a need for welders.
Yes, exactly. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And we had a guy respond to that. Donna and son responded to that. Like, I can't believe that they need my welding skills on the mission field.
It seems like for the last probably going on close to a century, we've been operating under a missionary model that has become severely outdated.
Yes.
But yet when you look back in history, Paul was a tent maker. He worked in leather.
That's right.
He wasn't supported by his ministry. He worked, and that's what got him into places. We look at groups like the Moravians centuries ago who had that same philosophy, and it seems like now we're being forced to go back to it.
Yeah, I think it's in so many ways it's to the betterment of the gospel, because you're looked at in most of those least reached in those 1040 window countries. They don't understand going in and as in a status, as a missionary status. They don't understand that because it's so foreign to them, outside of their own context.
Right.
But when you go in and there's a need that's being met from a professional standpoint, then they can understand it, because spirituality in many of those places, obviously not in the context of Christianity, but spirituality in their own religious context is so intertwined with the culture and with every belief that there is political belief, it's professional and marketing belief, and all of that is so intertwined, where we have a tendency here to put those in a box and segregate
That's so
them.
good, Jay. That's such a great observation, and it just seems like the complaint that I've often heard from people that are saying, well, maybe I need a trade or a business to get in, but then would I have time for ministry?
Yes.
And I want to scream. What's your reaction to that? I know you and I are on the same page.
That is exactly. It's like, I don't have time for ministry. Well, but wait a minute. Your ministry before was where you were working.
And that was you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And and we've talked about this, but sometimes after you get into this full-time ministry, man, I wish I was back out in the marketplace where, where you had a lot more, you're just connected in a different way.
Yes, and the people in your network are so much more liable to open up to the gospel if they know you as a person, if they know you as someone who adds value to the world around you.
It's true. That's so true. And, as a pastor, certainly it's a public office, and it's to be honored for sure. But I think too that whenever people find out you're a pastor, it's kind of like there's a response that comes with that, and a different level of communication.
Yeah, you and I've talked about this before too. When we travel internationally, people say, "Well, who are you and what do you do?" And I'm struggling. How can I explain what I'm doing honestly without saying, "Well, I pastor a church"?
That's right, exactly.
And immediately the laser shield comes down.
Yeah, exactly. And That's why now we can just say we're retired.
Exactly, exactly. It's kind of a blessing. We kind of figured that out at the wrong time.
That's right.
But I was just talking to a friend of mine in Spain this morning on Zoom, and he gave me a quote that I'm still savoring. But he was mentioning how he knew that after we had come back from so many years in Latin America, it was hard for us, and still is, to connect with the American church in a lot of ways. And there's nothing wrong with the American church. There's some great churches, great believers, nothing wrong with theological studies, going to seminary. There's a place for that. But he made the comment, and he's another guy kind of like us, kind of a maverick, and he's traveling all over the world and ministering in different and unusual contexts. But he said, I think I know what's happening to you. He says, I look around and I see this not just in the United States, but our church has become so much like machines, and pastors are, rather than loving people, are wanting to control them. And he says, what I see happening is the organization begins to eat up the organism.
Wow.
And I thought,
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
I think I translated that correctly.
No, it's true. And
Yeah.
I think that's, you get so connected to the work that is necessary, especially as a church grows. There's so much need to support the mothership that you forget that there's a vast ocean out there that needs to be explored, and it's a balance. It's a balancing act.
So Jay, my friend, as I welcome you into the world of patriarchs,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to people, young, old, or likewise coming to retirement? How can we do a better job of living out our faith and the reality of the world around us?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I just felt like the longer that I walked with the Lord and tried to figure this Christian thing out, the more I just came to the conclusion that grace, is just really the fabric that ties us all together.
Yeah.
And it's like Jesus said, it's really the love of one another. Really, he obviously we love him because he first loved us, but his command was this love across the board. And boy, in this situation we're in these days, there's not a lot of love being spread in a divisive world.
Yeah, especially in the church, which is what's disturbing.
It is disturbing, and people have kind of taken their own camp, and they've huddled up, and there's walls that have been built, and that was really the opposite of what was called on by Jesus. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I haven't seen him for 30 years, and we ran into each other and spent some time together. He says, and he wouldn't claim himself as a Christian, but he said, I've read the Bible I have has all of Jesus's words in red. And, and I kind of chuckled. He says, and I read all the red words, and I didn't see anything I disagreed with.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I think, for me, that's like, that's the bottom line is, when you think about the Creator God, and this God that we have, it begs the fact that He has to be a loving, forgiving, benevolent God, and people are still, the church still, I think, takes this stand of no, you have to believe this, or you have to do this, or you have to not do this, or whatever, and Jesus just said simply to the thief on the cross, no, just for him saying, hey, remember me? Will you remember me, Jesus?
Yeah.
When you come into your kingdom, he recognized him as the king.
Exactly.
And he said, hey, you'll be with me in paradise.
So, Jay, how long did you serve in ministry here at what is now Graceway?
Well, it's been, I came in 92, after I met you, but I came on staff in 97, so it's been, it'll be almost 25 years.
Yeah, it's been a quarter of a century. That sounds old right there. Right?
I know.
It sounds better to say 25
It went
years.
just like that, though, didn't it?
Yeah, man. And the thing about it, and of course you and Andrea and your family are so loved here. Your kids grew up, and you guys have been such a part of people's lives. and you form the relationships that last for a lifetime. And I think it's good for people watching us today and know you. You're not planning on going anywhere.
No,
You got
no,
family
that's
here,
right.
and you'll still be at
That's
Graceway,
right,
walking through the
exactly.
hallways.
Yeah, I mean, where else can I come for the words of the Lord?
There you go. But what is so remarkable to me, and of course, you and I served together all those 25 years, and I was here a few years before that, of course, but what is so neat, and we made some stupid decisions. We did some things wrong along the way, as we do through life, but what is so remarkable is you and several others made such a contribution coming out of the business world, coming out of industry, coming out of education. I look back on our ministerial team that we had, and people like yourself, Tim Menzendeek, who came out of a academic and broadcasting background. I look at Jim Lee, who's still serving here, he was a basketball player, a coach, and a mathematics teacher, and now has become a fabulous minister and counselor, and so many people like that. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I think we were trying to blaze a trail back in those days of showing people that you can serve God from any position in life.
Yes, that's so true too. I think that it's like when you have real world experience that you can tie together, because the Bible's real world.
Yeah.
It's practical. There's philosophy in it, but it's really a book about living practically.
Yeah.
And I think that when you have the real world experience of being there and being out, rubbing your shoulders within that context, then that's just who you are.
Yeah.
It's not something that you do because you've been commanded to do it.
Right.
You are that person because that's who God made you.
Yeah. And I watched you over the years so many times interfacing with people serving in other fields. And you would use that experience and the things that you had learned in your previous life in business to the advantage of everyone. So it's probably a good place to leave it. We could go on for that. I'm sure we will
right,
without
yeah.
cameras, but
Absolutely, yeah.
but it's been such an honor and a joy to kind of congratulate you on entering into this new season of life, Jay. And again, man, we love you and love your family. We're excited to see what's going to happen. Any big plans for the future? Just going to kind of catch your breath for a while.
You just catch my breath, and hopefully there will be a few, time opportunities to teach. I still like you led me into that love of teaching, and so hopefully there will be some of those that arise.
They still let this old guy get up every now and then, so that's pretty good.
I'm following you. I've followed you for years, so I'm going to follow you into retirement.
Well, Jay, thank you so much, and folks, thanks for letting us kind of reminisce here a little bit, and we'll be back next week and talking about the message from that Sunday. But thank you so much for being with us, and Jay, blessings to you. Merry Christmas, man.
God bless you.
And
You
we
too.
will be
Merry
in touch.
Christmas. Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning into the Graceway Experience. Hope we can talk again sometime.